Well, yes, I was able to get him today for a little bit of this discussion and grab my husband to talk about that hard question about what do we do when the government is corrupt. And Peter is saying, and Paul, actually, both of them, and even Jesus, talks about submitting to authority. So let's get into it. Why, when Peter is saying, submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to every authority instituted among men, of course, I just talked about the fact that that authority instituted Greek is actually human creation. It's not just specifically authority institution. So whether to the king as the supreme authority or to governors who are sent by him to punish those who do wrong and to commend those who do right. So we talked a little bit about that, but how do we respond when authority or government is corrupt, whether that's nation as a whole or state or local government?
Romans 13 is another passage that needs to be taken into
Okay.
account with that in Peter.
Okay, so you go ahead while I turn there.
Generally, so God ordains three institutions in Scripture. One is church, not like a denomination church, but the church, the ecclesia. Two, priesthood, stuff like that. Two is family, and three is government. So, yes, we obey those who are in authority. Now, Romans 13 also tells us some of the job of the government. Right? The government is God's servant and an agent of wrath to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. This is why you pay taxes for the authorities of God's servants who give their full time to governing and give everyone what you owe him. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, so on and so on.
And Jesus said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar, and unto God what is God.
Give to Caesar what Caesar's good. And that was one of the ways, that was the big thing that Alvin York, who is a sharpshooter and Medal of Honor recipient in World War I, reconciled the commandment, thou shalt not kill, with being drafted. And fighting for the country in World War I was he came across the verse, give to Caesar what Caesar's, and render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render unto God what is God's. So you do your service that you're required to do for your nation, and give your obedience that you're required to God. Give to God what's God's. Give to the government what's the government's. Are there times that we shouldn't obey the government? Well, in general. And I know a lot of us in America have very cultural, there are different cultural groups that founded America. So there are different ideas on where to rebel against. There's some that say, any obedience to the government is not good. Others, some are very ready to disobey at the drop of a hat, and others take a lot more prodding. In general, the job of the government is to protect its citizens. That's one thing that both the founding fathers and John Locke, folks like that, in the Foundation for American Government, that they and the Scripture that they agree on is the job of the government is to protect the people.
Which is what First Peter even
says. That's it.
Is that you're supposed to, those who do wrong, punish those who do wrong, commend those who do right. That's the purpose of the government.
When the government no longer is protecting the people who gave it its authority, and people, as more John Locke, the people have innate rights given to them from God. They give up some of those rights in order to have protection for the group. They come together in a group and they give up some of their independent individual rights in order to establish a protection for the group. That protection for the group is government, which again aligns with Scripture. See, this Enlightenment philosopher John Locke is still based in Scripture. Government's job is to protect the people. When the government no longer protects its people, the people who gave it that power, please go back and read your Declaration of Independence. Then that's when the time to rebel against the government, because it's not doing its God-given job anymore. the job that God has for government is to protect the people. So if the government is making you do something against your faith, that's not doing this job anymore. Obviously, we should obey the laws of God rather than those of men. They say that in Acts. But
And America was born because they tried to obey. Well, they were obeying the laws of the king that were given, but it kept no longer protecting the people and made them into slaves more so. And they tried multiple times to rectify it, but at some point they finally said we need to be an independent nation. And then even Ecclesiastes says that there's a time for peace and there's a time for war. So there are times that you are to rise up and take some action. We also have a responsibility. If you are given, in America we have this, so not all nations have this, but in America we are given the right to vote. And we are given the right to be active participants in our government and to change policies and to make a difference. When we shirk that responsibility and we just say, oh, we're just going to do whatever happens, then, well, you have no right to say anything else.
that may be a topic you need to do later, is should Christians participate in politics, which there are several videos on YouTube for. Mm-hmm. But essentially, yes, they should. And there's a whole theological reason for that, but we'll just leave it with the historical reason. Is look up the Black Robe Regiment, look up Martin Luther. That's Christians participating in politics and changing governments. So not if, oh, the government's doing something I don't like, they keep doing something that I don't agree with. That's not.
It's not for
reason.
Preferences.
It's are they protecting are they protecting the people that put them in office?
And we have the Constitution. Are they protecting the Constitution that we wrote as a people? And if they're upholding it, then you submit to that authority. If they are not upholding it, that's when
the government is not there to protect all of the people. It's only there to protect the people who have given up some of their innate rights and authority as humans in order to come together for self-preservation and self-protection, because that's what a government does. Like we said, that's John Locke, which is based on Romans and Peter, is the government's there for the protection of the people who establish it, who have given it some of their power. The government's power comes from the people. So whoever set up that government, whoever have given over their power, so it's citizens, those are the people the government's there to protect.
And so Leslie thought then it does not mean that if they are not upholding that protection or the Constitution or whatever, if they're not upholding that, doesn't mean it turns to violence. You can take action in order to change things. Like we were saying, that's why we'll do a separate thing at some point, why we should be a part of the politics and part of being in our government. We need good Christian, godly men and women who are going to actually
should probably try
changes.
Prayer before you try protest.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely prayer would be.
Saying, prayer would go a lot further than protest.
Yes. And I mean, you see how the protesting stuff is not really working in our nation right now. It causes more problems. Prayer. Always start in prayer and participate. Not in protest, but participate in your government and go to most of the local towns. They have what are town hall meetings, council meetings. Yeah. Be a part of those. Be a part of actually making a difference in your community instead of just complaining about it. If you complain about it and you're not actually being a part of helping solve any of the problems, then you don't really have any right to say anything. But our role, according to 1 Peter, in Romans, is that we submit to authority. We submit to that governing body.
If they're unjust, at some point, it's not necessarily for us to overthrow them. They have to answer to God for what they do. justice or injustice or whatnot. And nothing's ever going to be 100% for everybody, which is why smaller government's better. But anyway, the things that governments must do is protect those who've given up some of their power to establish that government. It's very hard to separate original American populism, government republicanism, rule of law from Scripture, but that's by design because that form of government was set up based on Scripture. So it gets interesting. You can't disentangle Christian Scripture from the original foundations of American government because it was based on Scripture.
Yeah. All right.
Probably need to do another video.
We may pick up and do another video. All right. Well, thank you for joining us and diving into this very surface level discussion because it can get a whole lot deeper. But we will pick up tomorrow. Well, actually, tomorrow I'm going to share about the Abigail T and tell a little bit more about her background story.